15 days to my nephew's wedding in Porto, Portugal. And actually, it is exactly 2 weeks from today when my nephew gets married. And we'll be there before we know it. I think actually I get on a plane in 10 days. So we're running out of time. And admittedly, I'm going to admit this up front. I am kind of rushing to get this out before the end of the day. I was in DC for about a week. And I'm still playing catch up on catching up with work, catching up with my stuff around the house. And today, on top of the catch up stuff, I ended up unexpectedly having a about a 2 hour appointment with a client, and followed by another 4 hour appointment with a client, and I hadn't even planned on doing any of those things. So I've been behind all day long. Admittedly, I'm trying to rush this out. But luckily, since it is Saturday, we are at 5 weeks since we started. I think it's been 35 days so far. And so I thought we would do our weekly recap. So we had, here's what we did this week. It was, if you kind of looking at it, we did a lot with food, some social stuff, kind of some fashion stuff. We talked about sandwiches that are common that you need to, things you have to eat, things you need to look for when you are in Porto. And so there were a number of different sandwiches that were very common. We tried to find out about pastries not that we should not miss, and pastry shops that we should keep an eye out for in Porto. We tried to learn the names of our relatives because we're going to be at a wedding, and in order to explain who everybody is and how we're related and all that stuff, we thought that maybe we should try to learn the names of relatives. A little bit with shopping. I went through the clothes again, and luckily I was able to find a few pairs of pants that I can wear. I bought a couple of belts. So I'm doing better. I'm not quite there. I think I may still need to find some shoes. I have to look at my suit and sport coat. I think I'm okay there too. But I don't know. And I need a swimsuit. That is going to be painful, but we got to do what we got to do, right? And one of the things, I was just on the road, and it was just kind of crazy. So we kind of checked in on that. And yesterday we learned some funny Portuguese expressions that we saw, which we can sprinkle in. Which, speaking of, we are going to cap today's thing off. If you are feeling kind of sporty when you go to Portugal or to Brazil, and you're trying to figure out what to do, I have some things that we can talk about there, some vocabulary or phrases to try out. So here are some popular sports. The most popular one, of course, is soccer, which in Portuguese is called futebol. Futebol. And here's some others. Basquete, which means basketball. Basquete. Tennis, which is tennis. You probably were able to guess that. Volley, which is like volleyball, volley. And they have this unbelievable, you have to see it to believe it. It is crazy in Brazil, especially in Rio de Janeiro, all along the beach. They have volleyball nets set up. And they also have like outdoor gyms kind of spaced out here and there. It's unbelievable. But there are people playing volleyball all day long. But there are these guys who play this, and I believe it's called Fuchi Volley. and and it is like a combination of volleyball and soccer where you're not allowed to use your hands. You can use your feet, you can use your chest, you can use your head, but not your hands. And it is crazy to watch these guys play that. But anyway, moving on, surfing. That's surfing. And, you know, we had the unbelievable surfer from Brazil in the Olympics last summer with that crazy picture of him basically just standing in midair. It was unreal. And so surfing is, of course, very popular and probably even more so because of him. Natasha, which I don't think I'm pronouncing that quite right, but that's swimming. It's like nadar, but Natasha, which is swimming. And this one was a surprise to me because I've always heard correndo or correr, which means to run, but they have one called, let me see if Coupa, which is jogging, Coupa. That I hadn't heard that one before. So Cooper. So those are some things, and so they have a few other ones that we'll quickly go through. Um, uh, academia. So in English, academia, it has to do with studying and like going to school and those kinds of things. But academia, it's like from the Greeks, and it does sort of mean academy, but it means the gym. So it's kind of funny, those words, gymnasio and academia, those two words both came from Greek, and it had to do with the gyms where the schools were gyms. So the schools and gyms were kind of taught together. And so those two words sometimes get kind of moved around in different languages. So academia or academia, I think is how they would pronounce it. Levantar pesos, which is lifting weights. Bougie, which has to do with um, sand buggies. Like we have, they used to have sand buggies. You don't hear them talk too much about that anymore, but they have sand buggies, and they are very popular, especially in Northeast Brazil. Jangada, which is a tiny sailboat, a jangada, and that is a tiny sailboat that people sail in. Ir de barco, which means taking a boat ride, fazer snorkeling, which is snorkeling. You know, I'm sure that made perfect sense, but this one surprised me. Fazer mergulho, which is scuba diving, which that is not the word I would have expected. In Spanish, scuba is buceo. And so I did not know that. Mergulho, I think I'm spelling it wrong. Mergulho. There it is. Fazer mergulho. Escalada em rocha. Ensalada em rocha, which is rock climbing. And the last one, ir de bicicleta, which is go on a bike ride. So they had just capping that off, a couple of things. I'll just read this last part. There are a number of places to do esportes radicais, which is kind of our equivalent of extreme sports in Brazil. You can voar de asa delta, which is hang gliding over in Rio over Ipanema Beach. So that's it. If you are looking to be sporty when you are going to Brazil or going to Portugal, those might be some words that you might need to know. So that's our 5-week wrap up for this week, and we are inside of 2 weeks. So tomorrow there are 14 days left until my nephew's wedding, and man, it's going to be here before we know it. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, maybe you can share it with a friend. Maybe they'd like to know some of these words or phrases. Maybe you can give me a like or something along those lines. I am doing 50-day challenges. This is the third of my 50-day challenges, and I have playlists for each of them. We had 50 days of trash, which is probably the most popular one. 50 days of fitness, and that was starting from scratch. For people who do a lot, that was probably kind of a little boring, but for people who are starting completely over and don't know what to do, or maybe it's your very first time, I thought it was actually pretty helpful. And then we have 50 days to Porto, getting ready for my nephew's wedding. And we'll be wrapping this up in a couple of weeks. And following that, we'll be starting another 50-day challenge. I'm not exactly sure what that will be, but we will figure that out then. And that's it, my friends. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow for day 14 until my nephew's wedding in Porto, Portugal. Take care, everybody. Bye.